You are standing on the bank of the Baghdad River. The year is 1288. The water is rising, and on the horizon, hundreds of Mongol warships are closing in. This is not an ordinary army. This is the force that leveled Baghdad, that subjugated Persia, China, Russia, and Poland. This is the largest empire in human history, controlling over 24 million square kilometers of land, nearly twice the size of the Roman Empire at its peak. And they lost here, not once, 3 times. The question is not how lucky Vietnam was. The question is, how did they do it? To understand that, you first need to understand the Mongols. By the 13th century, the Mongol Empire under Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, was in its most aggressive phase of expansion. They had just completed the conquest of the Song Dynasty, the most powerful empire in East Asia, after decades of war. They had the fastest cavalry in the world, the most advanced siege weapons, the most brilliant strategists, and they had something more terrifying than all of that, an undefeated reputation. Military historian Timothy May, author of The Mongol Art of War, published in 2007, describes Mongol tactics as a psychological machine. Before entering a city, they typically sent a simple message: surrender and live, resist and die. And they kept that promise on both sides. Most cities chose to surrender without a fight. Their reputation was their most powerful weapon. Viet, under the Tran dynasty, received that message. In 1257, the Mongols first entered Viet territory under the command of General Urien Khanai. They took Thang-long, the capital of Viet, in just a few days. But Thang-long was empty. King Tran Tai Tong did not fortify the capital. He evacuated the entire court, the civilians, and the food supply before the Mongols arrived. This was not cowardice. This was strategy. And this was the first time the Mongols had ever captured a capital and received nothing from it. No food, no treasury, no population to govern, no supply line to sustain their army. The Vietnamese military historian Nguyen Ngoc Tuan, in his work on Vietnamese historical chronicles, documented that the scorched earth strategy, evacuating everything and leaving nothing for the enemy, was the most decisive strategic decision the Tran dynasty made. The Mongols were exceptional fighters, but they were not bait to wait in tropical heat with no food supply. Within weeks, the Mongol army began to collapse. Disease spread rapidly. War horses, the backbone of Mongol cavalry, could not adapt to the climate and terrain. And the Tran forces, having retreated and preserved their strength, began striking from the rear, from the flanks, from places the Mongols could not see. In 1258, the Mongols withdrew. That was the first time. But Kublai Khan did not accept that. In 1285, he mobilized a far larger force, estimated at around 500,000 troops in some records, though modern historians like John Mann, author of Kublai Khan, His Life and Lost City, suggest the real figure was closer to 300,000, under the command of Prince Togon, Kublai Khan's own son. This time, the Tran dynasty did exactly the same thing. King Tran Nhan Tong and the retired emperor Tran Thine Tong abandoned Thang-long. Food was carried away or destroyed. Civilians retreated into forests and mountains, and the Mongols captured, once again, an empty capital. But this time, the situation was even worse for them. The summer climate of the Red River Delta was unlike anything the Mongols had ever encountered. Temperatures reached 38 to 40 degrees Celsius. Humidity hovered near 90%. Soldiers in iron armor collapsed from heat exhaustion. Horses died by the thousands, and the relentless small-scale raids from Tran forces, strike and withdraw, never engaging directly in the open battle the Mongols wanted, eroded their morale and their numbers day by day. Hang Dao Woon Tran Quoc Tuan, the supreme commander of the Tran military across all 3 invasions, understood something that very few commanders of his era recognized. You cannot defeat the Mongols by playing their game. You have to change the board. In the Proclamation to Officers, his famous call to arms, recorded in the complete annals of Viet, the official dynastic history of Vietnam, Tran Quoc Tuan did not appeal to glory or gold. He appealed to humiliation. He described in precise detail what the Mongols had done in every land they had conquered, and he asked the simplest possible question: do you want your children to grow up in a country like that? That was not just military strategy. That was psychological strategy. And it worked. In the summer of 1285, after months of relentless harassment, the Mongol army began retreating north. And this is when Tran Quoc Tuan struck. Instead of letting them leave, he pursued. At the battles of Tai Ket, Ham Tu, and most decisively Chuangjuang, Tran forces ambushed and destroyed tens of thousands of Mongol troops in retreat. Prince Togan reportedly escaped back to China, hidden inside a bronze tube to avoid arrow fire, according to the complete annals of Viet. That was the second time. Kublai Khan was furious. In 1287, he launched a third invasion, this time with a new strategy, a simultaneous land and sea assault, and a massive supply fleet to solve the logistical problem that had destroyed them twice before. But Tran Quoc Tuan had already seen this coming. He knew that if the Mongol supply fleet reached its destination, the war would shift in ways that would be devastating for Viet. So he dispatched Tran Can Do to intercept and destroy the entire supply fleet at Van Dawn, an archipelago on the northeastern coast, before it could reach the Mongol land forces. The Mongol army on land once again had no food, and once again Feng Long was empty. But this time, Tran Quoc Tuan had prepared one more thing. He ordered thousands of iron-tipped wooden stakes to be driven into the bed of the Baghdad River, the very waterway the Mongol fleet would have to pass through to retreat. This was not a new idea. No Quyen had used the exact same tactic on this exact same river in 938 to destroy the southern Han fleet, and Tran Quoc Tuan knew that history. April 1288. The Mongol warships entered the Baghdad River at high tide, the stakes still submerged beneath the surface. Tran forces lured them deeper, then feigned retreat. As the tide began to fall, the sharpened stakes rose. Mongol ships ran aground, and Tran forces poured out from both banks, launching fire arrows, boarding, destroying. Omar, the Mongol admiral, was captured alive. Most of the fleet was annihilated. That was the third time, and the last. So why did the Mongols lose? The answer is not one reason. It is the convergence of several things the Mongols had never encountered simultaneously. Geography. The Mongols excelled on open steppe, where cavalry could move freely. The Red River Delta, with its dense river networks, thick tropical jungle, and punishing humidity, neutralized nearly every advantage they had. Logistics. The Mongol Empire operated by living off conquered land. The Tran Dynasty's scorched earth policy severed that supply completely, every single time. Strategy. Tran Quoc Tuan never fought the way the Mongols wanted to fight. He extended the timeline, ground down their forces, and struck only when they were already weakened. Military scholars today would recognize this as an exhaustion strategy, a form of asymmetric warfare that exploits the attacker's vulnerabilities rather than matching their strengths. And there was one more thing, something harder to measure but no less real: will. In the Dian Hong Conference of 1285, one of the most unusual political events in medieval East Asian history, King Tran Tan Tong summoned village elders from across the entire country to Tanglong to ask a single question: fight or surrender? The answer of thousands of people, recorded in the complete annals of Viet, rose like thunder: fight. This was not ceremony. This was the genuine consensus of an entire society about what they were willing to endure in order to survive. And here is the thing, that is still there. In the cultural memory of Vietnam, in the way people tell the story of Hung Dao Vuong, of the Bac Dang River, of the Dian Hong Conference, there is a thread that runs from the 13th century to right now. Not a belief that Vietnam is invincible, but a belief that when a country is placed before that choice, the answer has already been decided. You are standing on the bank of the Bac Dang River. The year is 1288. The water is rising, and on the horizon, hundreds of Mongol warships are closing in. But beneath the surface, the stakes are already waiting.